Greetings, friends. It's Deb, and welcome. Last week, we focused on something very simple, but very important: coming home to the body, feeling the breath, noticing sensation. And that foundation matters because when we feel a little more settled inside ourselves, something else becomes possible. We can begin to look outward again. And that brings us to this week's theme, which is unity in relationship. Because, well, meditation often looks like an individual practice, sitting quietly with ourselves. Life is actually lived in relationship, right? Relationship with other people, relationship with the natural world, and relationship with our own thoughts and emotions. And sometimes those relationships feel easy, and sometimes they feel difficult, right? And sometimes we feel connected, and sometimes we feel very separate. Many wisdom traditions talk about this idea of separation. And the mind tends to divide things into categories: me and you, right and wrong, safe and unsafe, friend and stranger, for instance. And this is how the thinking mind just organizes experience. But when we begin to slow down through mindfulness, we start to see something interesting. Underneath those labels, we're all sharing something very human. What is that? Well, we all breathe. We all experience joy and disappointment. We all want to feel safe. And we all want to feel understood. And when we begin to recognize that, the sense of separation softens. For me, I notice this often when teaching meditation or sound baths or sound healing sessions, different sessions. People arrive carrying very different stories, different stresses, different worries, different life experiences. But after a period of quiet practice together, sometimes just 10, 20 minutes, hour, what have you, something shifts in the room. The energy softens. People breathe more slowly. And there's often a sense of shared humanity that becomes very tangible. No one had to talk about their story, but the nervous systems in the room began to settle together. And that's something we don't really talk about enough: how much human beings regulate and support one another simply through presence. Interesting, right? Now, unity in relationship doesn't mean we all agree with each other. It doesn't mean that life suddenly becomes conflict free. We wish, right? But mindfulness changes how we meet one another. Instead of reacting automatically, we pause. Instead of assuming, we become curious. Instead of immediately defending our position, we remember the other person is also a human being navigating their own experience. And that shift alone can change a great deal. When we practice mindfulness regularly, consistently, something subtle begins to grow. And I've seen this with, of course, myself, but I've seen it with my students and those I know. We start recognizing that the emotions that we feel, be it joy, fear, frustration, hope, are all part of the shared human experience. They're not uniquely ours. They're part of being human, right? And that realization can open the door to something very important: compassion. Not just compassion for others, but compassion for ourselves as well. So, here on the Peaceful Path, this week we'll gently explore practices that help us remember connection, mindful listening, loving kindness, awareness of shared experience. We're not forcing ourselves to feel a certain way. We're simply allowing awareness to widen a little bit, to include ourselves and others. So, as you move through this week, you might want to try a small experiment. And I encourage you to do this. Now, when you encounter someone, whether it's a friend, a stranger, or someone you disagree with, pause for a moment and remember, this person also wants to feel safe. This person also experiences joy and difficulty. And this person also wants to be understood. And that simple recognition can soften the sense of separation. And from that place, unity becomes possible, not as an idea, but as a lived experience. So I hope you'll join me this week in our live classes or in the replays on the Peaceful Path. You can find it at peacefulwellness.studio or on our school community as well at peacefulwellnessgroup.com. So I thank you so much for joining with me today. And as always, I wish you much peace, my friends.